Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So we were talking about the pollination. So depending upon from where the pollen grain is coming or from what is the source of the pollen, the pollination is of three types: autogamy, geitonogamy, and xenogamy. Now, when we talk about autogamy, this is the process wherein the pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, right? Mostly the process takes place in the bisexual flowers, right? Furthermore, the like some plants such as viola, oxalis, these plants, they produce two types of flowers. Okay. So basically, when we talk about the types of flowers that it produces, so it like one is a closed flower, one is a flower that is exposed or that is open. Okay. So depending upon if it is a closed flower, then so if it is a closed flower, then obviously the pollen grains, once they are released, they'll be landing on the stigma of the same flower itself. So there a short seed set or a short number of pollen grains are made. But in the case of the flowers that are open, then they have a chances of the pollens being wasted and not a successful pollination taking place. So when the anthers dehisce, also one more thing, students, please switch on your videos, everyone. Quickly. Jovita, Jesslyn. Okay, Jesslyn is done. Yes. So now, furthermore, talking about those, Zanera, I think you're in the wrong class. This is class 12th.
Ma'am, I joined this class only.
You're like you've gotten this link only, the link for this class.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Just 1 second. Okay, Zanera, by mistake, the link has been sent to you by the team. You can leave the meeting. Okay, this is class 12th going on.
Okay, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
Okay,
Bye, ma'am.
bye bye. Okay, the rest of you, switch on your videos. We were talking about the pollination. So in the case of a closed flower, that is cleistogamous flower, the wastage of pollination does not happen. So they produce an assured seed set even in the absence of pollinators. So they are not very much reliant upon the pollinators. Furthermore, when we talk about the geitonogamy, now this is the kind of pollination wherein the plant is same, but the flower is different. So the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower, but the plant is same. It is functionally cross-pollination, but genetically it is not. Why? Because the source of the pollen is the same plant. Genetically, they are same. Then comes xenogamy. Now, xenogamy is cross-pollination. Here, the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a different plant takes place. So, this is the only type of pollination wherein the genetically different pollen grains are brought to the stigma. So, here you'll find a lot of variations taking place. Now, those agents that bring about pollination or they cause the pollination to take place, they are called as the pollinators. Okay. And the pollinators could be biotic, they could be abiotic. Now, the abiotic pollinators are the wind and the water, meaning they are the non-living pollinators. Biotic pollinators are the living organisms such as animals. Now, the maximum number of pollinating agents, they're mostly biotic, and amongst the biotic, the bees or the insects are the most common pollinators. So when we talk about the abiotic pollination, so in this case, the chances of successful pollination is actually a luck factor. Why? Because it's wind and water, they can move any way they want to. It will not move according to how a plant wants or how you want it to happen. So that is why, to assure no failure takes place, then a large number of pollen, they are produced by the anther. So that even if some gets wasted, still there'll be a lot. Amongst the abiotic type, the pollination by the wind is the most common kind. Pollination with the help of the wind is known as anemophily. Right? And since the wind has to carry, so then obviously the pollen grains cannot be very heavy. They cannot be sticky. So they are very lightweight and they are non-sticky. The stamens are exposed and they are large so that they can get easily dispersed into the wind. And at the same time, to receive those floating and moving with the wind kind of pollens, the stigma is often very feathery so as to catch it. Usually the flowers that are pollinated by the wind, they have a single ovule and several flowers they are packed into inflorescence. In the case of corn cob, the tassels, they're nothing but the stigma and the style. Now, wind pollination is very common in the case of grasses, but all in all, wind pollination is not extremely, you can say popular as far as the biotic pollination takes place. Then we have pollination by water. Now, pollination by water is called as hydrophily. This type of pollination is rare and mostly very few genus, they have this water pollination or hydrophily. Now, for the transport of male gametes in lower plants such as algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, water is important because these plants, they are dependent upon the water. Some of the water pollinated plants are Vallisneria and Hydrilla. They are freshwater plants, whereas Zostera, also called as sea grasses, they are marine plants. Now, in the case of Vallisneria, the female flower, what happens is that they are longer. So they reach the surface of the water and then the male flowers, they are released on the surface of water. And then they get carried passively by the water current. So wherever the water current would go, these pollens will also go in that case. On the other hand, if you think about the marine plant that is Zostera, so here the female flowers, they are submerged in the water and the pollen grains, they get released directly into the water. And in this case, the pollen grains are long instead of the stigma or the style being long. Now, since the pollen grains, they are found in the water, they have to be waterproof in order to protect them from getting wet under the water. So for that, they have a mucilage covering protecting them. Is it clear, students?
Yes.
Now, talking about the aquatic plants, even so they live in the water, but it doesn't necessarily mean that their pollination will be, taking place with the help of water only. Many a times it's the wind that pollinates them. So in majority of the water pollinated, like water plants, the pollination takes place by the wind. So anemophily happens. Furthermore, the wind and the water pollinated flowers, they're not very bright and beautiful. The reason being that they do not have to attract any insect. They do not have to attract any kind of organism. Now, the major pollination that happens, it takes place via biotic agents such as the insects. Like amongst all the various kinds of biotic agents, honeybees are the most common. the pollination that takes place with the help of insect, we call it as entomophily. Apart from that, larger organisms such as primates and very much you can say tree dwellers and reptiles, they also play a great big role in the pollination. Majority of the insect pollinated flowers, they are very large and very beautifully colored. Why? So as to attract the insects. If the insects are attracted, basically they will, like their bodies will get dusted with the pollen grain and thereby the pollination will be successful when they move from one flower to another flower. Any doubts? Now, furthermore, when we talk about this particular kind of pollination, remember that if we talk about the pollination that takes place by the beetles and stuff, so in them, the pollination, like the flowers, they secrete foul odors and smell so as to attract the beetles. The beetles do not get attracted easily by the like nice flower smell or nectar or anything. Now, obviously, the things that the plant offered for the plants is the floral reward. Now, the floral rewards tells us that if the pollination is being done by any kind of flower or any kind of insect, then basically the plant is going to provide that insect with a, you can say, reward for doing that. So that is called as floral reward. So the nectar, the pollen grains, they're called as the floral rewards. Now, in majority of the organisms, this floral reward works really nice, but there are few organisms that do not need the reward in the form of food or nectar. Rather, they would require a safe place for to lay their eggs, right? Such as in the case of Amorphophallus, which is a very tall flower. It is 6 feet in height. Then there's another very, you can say, obligate relationship between Pronuba moth and Euca plant. So they cannot complete their lives without each other. So their relationship is obligatory. Obligatory means strictly, right? So what does the moth do? The moth deposits its egg in the ovarian locule of the flower, and then the flower in turn gets pollinated. So both of them are benefiting each other. Now then, like this particular moth, it comes out as soon as the seeds would start developing. Now, there are certain organisms that take up the pollen, take up the, you can say, nectar and stuff, but do not help in the process of pollination. So we call them as pollen robbers. Okay, they can, like, they take the floral rewards, but do not cause any pollination. Now, when successful inbreeding is done, what is inbreeding? When successfully a successive self-pollination keeps on happening for several generations, then inbreeding depression is a phenomena that takes place. What happens during inbreeding depression? It is the process wherein the continued self-pollination leads to the plants losing their vigor, losing their superior characteristics. So how would a person protect that? So there are outbreeding devices that actually promote cross-pollination and discourage self-pollination. What are these devices? There's unisexuality. Now, unisexuality, it is the whole entire process wherein like a plant either has the male or the female flowers in one. So, monoecious and dioecious are the two conditions. Male and female flowers, they are produced on the same plant, and that condition is called as monoecious. Male and female flowers are produced on the separate plants, like one plant is a male, one is a female, then that is what we call as dioecious. So monoecious can prevent orthogamy, but it cannot prevent geitonogamy, whereas dioecious can prevent both the kinds and it causes xenogamy. It promotes cross-pollination, such as in the case of the Vallisneria, papaya, and castor and maize also do the monoecious kind. Then the second outbreeding device is dichogamy. It refers to a different maturation time of androecium and gynoecium in the same flower. Condition number one is when the anther would mature first and the stigma has not become receptive. So here we call it as proto-androus, wherein the male counterpart is, maturing first. And just the opposite, when the female reproductive part matures first, we call it as protogynous. The example for protoandrous is sunflower and cotton. And the example for protogynous is what we have, ficus and aristolochia. Another method of promoting outbreeding and discouraging inbreeding is self-incompatibility. That if, just in case if the pollen of the same plant lands on the stigma would not accept it. Right? The failure of accepting the self-pollens or the failure of the self-pollens fertilizing the ovule. This is a genetic mechanism. And here pollen tube germination will not take place. Thereby, same pollen will not be able to fertilize. And in some species, the anther and the stigma, they're placed at different positions so that even if the pollens are being released, in that case or in any other case, the pollens will not touch the stigma. Is it clear, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No.
Okay. So now furthermore, after the pollen lands on the stigma, then we see a chemical dialogue taking place between the pollen and the stigma. This dialogue is to ensure that whether the pollen is the right type of pollen or the wrong type of pollen. Then only when the stigma accepts the pollen that has landed, then only the pollination will, you can say, then only the pollen tube germination will take place. So when we talk about that, the pistil, it has the capability to recognize the right type or the compatible type of pollen, and it can differentiate. Like it knows, depending upon the genetic predisposition, it knows that which is the right type of pollen, which is the wrong kind. After recognize the right type, then the pollen grain gets accepted and the pollen tube germination takes place. Now, the pollen tube can either enter into the embryo sac through three ways: micropyle, chelazal, or integument. If it is entering via micropyle, we call that condition as porogamy. If it is entering via chelazal side, it is called as chelazogamy. And if it is entering via integuments, we call it as mesogamy. Now you have to remember one thing, that despite of wherever it is entering, it will go towards the synergids only, meaning towards the micropyle. Now, when it reaches over there, the filiform apparatus is going to guide the pollen tube inside, and the pollen tube, whilst it's happening, if it is shed at the 2-cell stage, now the generative cell is going to divide and form the 2 male gametes in this stage. One of the male gametes will be released into the cytoplasm of the synergid, and it will move towards the egg cell and fuse with it. This is called as syngamy. It will result in the formation of a diploid zygote. And the other male gamete will go and fuse with the polar nuclei, the 2 polar nuclei, which will form a triploid endosperm structure, a primary endosperm. Okay, so that is going to be formed, and which we call as triple fusion. So syngamy and triple fusion together, they are called as double fertilization. Is it clear, students? Any doubts? Does anyone have any doubts? Anything you want to ask?
No, ma'am.
Nothing. Everything is clear, crystal clear to everyone. Very good. My bright students are here, huh? Now, up until now, we have seen the pre-fertilization stages, we have seen fertilization stages, and now the only thing that is left is the post-fertilization event and the structures associated with it. So, after the fertilization gets completed, then the endosperm development takes place, the embryo development takes place, the ovule matures into the seed, and the ovary matures into the fruit. All in all, if you see it from the outside to the inside, the ovary is the fruit, inside of which the ovules are going to be there, which are the seeds, inside of which embryo is going to be there, which will be getting the nourishment from the endosperm inside. Okay, so this was about the fertilization, and then now the post-fertilization structures. Now, let us solve questions till here, meaning till fertilization event. Then we'll discuss about the post-fertilization. Just like how you people solved the questions in the previous class, I mean yesterday, same way you'll solve it today also. And if there's any problem, you will ask. You people have done, I believe, till question 18, right? So you start from 19, I believe. Okay, you can start from question number 19 and then we'll move forward and talk about post-fertilization events. Yes, now you can solve these questions. Also, this is to everyone. You people solve it honestly, because it is actually, once you solve as many questions as possible, and that too without cheating, without using internet and stuff. You people will realize that you've learned so much, because practicing questions makes you really, really good at what you do. Understood? So try to practice as many questions as possible.
Ma'am, can you scroll down?
Yes. Done? Done till here?
Yes. Done, ma'am. Done, ma'am.
Everyone's done till here. What is the question people last did? Which question are you on? 30th question, like 29th question you people have done?
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay. You people are doing serially, na?
Done one.
Everyone's done till here? Okay, did you people? Okay, now you start from 33. This 33 onwards is also done. Maybe people have to do. Hmm? You have to attempt from question 33, right? Yes or no? Done, students? Done till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, done till here, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does anyone have any doubts?